Everyone knows all about the base set Shadowless Charizard for the Illustrated Pikachu, but thinking of how I will never own these cards, I got to thinking, what modern Pokemon cards are the most expensive? Let's start with Vaporeon EX from Prismatic Evolutions. This Vaporeon may be the best Vaporeon card ever. It's a really clever design with all of the bubbles and the stained glass in the background. Just a super cool card that will cost you $315 to get your hands on. And from one evolution to another, this is Glaceon EX, also from Prismatic Evolutions. Yeah, this is a trend that will keep on giving. Prismatic has had a troubling release, and as such a lot of these cards are very inflated in value. However, similarly to the Vaporeon, I can actually see some value here. The snowflake pattern is very clever and ornate and just looks amazing. And unfortunately, this amazing design has led to the card having a price of $330, which is almost exactly the same as this next card, which once again is an evolution. Only this time not from Prismatic Evolutions. For years, Evolving Skies was everywhere. Everyone was opening this set and everyone was desperate to get their hands on a couple of cards, with this Espeon V-Max alternate art being one of them. The V-Max alt arts was so good for the evolutions. If you wanted this card nowadays, you would have to set yourself back $331. Okay, let's take a quick break from Eevees and instead talk about a tag team card that has all three of these evolutions beat. The Magikarp and Wailord GX alternate art. I love the tag team era of cards, and in 2025, people have really started to appreciate these cards for what they were, leading to this card and many other tag teams skyrocketing in price, with the Magikarp and Wailord GX being $354. Okay, back to Eevee. The Glaceon EX SAR was cool, but as they always say, you can't beat the classics. This is the Glaceon V-Max alternate art from Evolving Skies. For a while, everyone focused on the Umbreon V-Max from this set, and as such, many people ignored just how good the rest of the evolution art rares were. These cards are very good, and the Glaceon is one of my favorites. Just look at the little Pikachu in the bottom. This Glaceon, and I guess Pikachu, card would set you back about $357. I promise this entire list is not just going to be evolutions, but this next card, well, it's an evolution. This is the Leafeon EX from Prismatic Evolutions, and on Arceus, this is the first card I may actually have to buy. The card has a Leafeon climbing in a tree with its Terra Crown above lit. The card is super cool and honestly maybe my favorite from Prismatic for the time being. Unfortunately for me, getting this card is going to cost me $367. Yeah, ouch. My wife and I both have one Pokemon we absolutely love, Mew. And we love Mew so much we have been working on a master collection of Mews. So far we have a lot of very old and rare Mew cards, and they all cost us a little bit. However, not as much as the Mew EX special illustration rare from Paldean Fates. Initially people didn't think much of this card. However, as time went on, the card's price jumped massively from about $80 to $371. Yeah, how did that happen? And now it's time for Mew's twisted twin brother, Mewtwo. And this card is very cool. Coming from Shining Legends, we have Mewtwo GX Secret Rare. Once again, it took people until this year to truly appreciate just how cool this card actually is. And it is very cool. It depicts the moment before Mewtwo escaped from its incubation chamber to wreak havoc on the Pokemon world. It's just a very nice design, and a bit of an expensive design as well, at $372, making it $1 more expensive than the Mew. I promise this Eevee is the last for a couple more cards. This is the Flareon EX SIR from, you guessed it, Prismatic Evolutions. I really have nothing more to say about this set at this point. The card's cool and expensive and would cost you $383. Chilling Reign, or as it's otherwise known, Chilling Pain, was a relatively boring set. It had pretty awful pull rates, and honestly no one really cared all that much about Calyrex. But hidden within the set was a card that everyone wanted, Blaziken V-Max's alternate art. Chilling Reign was the first set to introduce alternate arts and largely changed the TCG going forward, and this card was the first majorly sought after alternate art, and as such its price is a little bit high at $385. From an iconic fire starter to an iconic water starter, next we have the Greninja EX SIR from Twilight Masquerade. All the way up to the reveal of Prismatic Evolutions, fans thought that the Greninja EX would be the most expensive card of the Scarlet and Violet era of Pokemon. Of course, this is now not the case, but anyway, the Greninja caused such a storm that the Pokemon Company had to release a Greninja Premium Collection alongside the Shrouded Fable set. However, if you want this original Greninja, you can add it to your collection for $410. Okay, back to Eevees. This is the Sylveon V-Max alternate art from Evolving Skies. The card is just so adorable. My wife almost cries every time she looks at it just because of how much she wants it and loves it. Sylveon is in a small field surrounded by multiple Eevee, a Flabébé, and the cutest Pokemon of them all, Marshadow. for some reason. Anyway, the card is very cute and would cost you $422 to add to your collection. Finally, after a ridiculous amount of time, I have an announcement to make. We have a Charizard in the list, everyone, from Burning Shadows. I know, this is a momentous occasion. Sun and Moon was not necessarily a great era in the TCG's history, at least not for expensive Pokemon cards. However, this Charizard GX may be one of the weirder expensive cards. This card is a Rainbow Rare card. For people who do not know, Rainbow Rare cards are a little bit polarizing. Some people love them, and some people really just cannot stand them. So this Charizard GX being $423 is absolutely insane. There are two cards that have been synonymous with each other for years, similar to the Pokemon they are based on, Umbreon and Espeon. Now of course Umbreon will appear later in this list, but for now let's talk about the Espeon EX from Prismatic Evolutions. This card I am shocked to find is not the second most valuable from Prismatic. It looks awesome and really captures just how magical Espeon actually is. And the magic unfortunately will do nothing for your bank account, as this card sells for $428. Okay, we have another Eevee. I swear there are less up ahead. This is the Leafeon V-Max alternate art from Evolving Skies. I'm actually really glad to see this Leafeon so much higher on the list than some of the other counterparts. It kind of has a bit of everything. It shows what an actual Dynamax Leafeon could be used for outside of battling. Its theme is on point for a grass type, and the card is honestly just super cool. And for me, that kind of justifies the $446 price point. It's been a tough year for Pokemon fans, with sets like 151, Prismatic Evolutions, and Surging Sparks, which all sold out almost instantly and made obtaining them quite hard for fans. And of course, there was one card that everyone wanted from Surging Sparks, the Pikachu EX Special Illustration Rare. This card is arguably the first card on this list that is also quite playable. Generally, an expensive card is one of two things. It looks great, like the Evolution art rares, or it's very playable in the current meta. This Pikachu actually kind of did both, which is weird, and is also partially why this card nowadays sells for $456. So far, what do all these cards have in common? They're all somewhat special cards, whether that be a rainbow or an illustration rare. They all have something unique about them, which is why our next card is a pretty weird one. This is the Mega Charizard EX from X and Y Flashfire. Flashfire is a set that is synonymous with the X and Y era of Pokemon, solely for just how Charizard focused it actually was. And this Mega Charizard is nowadays one of the sought after cards from the set. Is it actually worth $461 though for a regular EX Pokemon? Personally, I would say no. You know what I just realized? We haven't had a waifu card yet on the list. For those of you who don't know, the waifu cards are a nickname for cards featuring the female characters from the Pokemon universe. And one of the fan favorites of these cards is Lily from Ultra Prism. This card is honestly kind of boring, and I cannot think of anything that would cause this card compared to other waifu cards to be so much more expensive. The Lily card will cost you $474 to add to your collection. Okay, back to Eevee. There are three major evolutions that do well in Pokemon cards. Espeon, of course Umbreon, and the newest addition to the Eevee roster, Sylveon. Sylveon is a very cute evolution and has become a fan favorite for millions of fans around the world. And its special illustration rare from Prismatic is just what fans were after. The cute pose, the colourful background, and the actually good moves. This card is playable, looks great, and is from a set that no one can get a hold of. Well, unless you have $475 spare to get one. I promise we are almost done with Eevees. There are a couple more coming up. For now though, let's talk about one of my favourite Pokemon, Gengar, and specifically the Gengar and Mimikyu Tag Team GX alternate art from Sun and Moon Team Up. Wow, that was a lot. Gengar cards in the last year or so have seen a huge bump in price as people really started to look back at how Pokemon used to do art cards. The Gengar and Mimikyu GX is potentially one of the coolest. It has two fan favorite Pokemons as well as some interesting attacks and a really ominous look to it. It's just a really cool card and it better be for the $530 it would cost to get one. We have 7 more cards to go and believe it or not, only this next one is a Charizard. It seems fans are finally starting to drop some of the hype for Charizard and appreciate just how good other newer cards actually are. Especially since this Charizard is just a shiny full art from Hidden Fates. It's honestly a boring card that is kind of playable, but definitely shouldn't be worth $533. Okay, now let's get into the heavy hitters. Starting with the Giratina V alternate art from Lost Origin. As we established earlier, there are two things that make a Pokemon card expensive: playability and aesthetic. And the Giratina V had both of these. Giratina and Lost Zone decks for a while dominated the TCG, and were really quite challenging to deal with. And I feel like the price of this card is kind of a memory for that. at $712. Ouch, that's an expensive memory. A couple of years ago, there was a huge scandal rocking the Pokemon card world, where an unknown seller brought in stacks and stacks of rare Pokemon cards from the Fusion Strike set. It's clear that these cards were stolen off the production line and never would have made it to packs, which is a shame because Fusion Strike had some awesome cards, but just awful pull rates, likely as a result of this theft. With one of the best cards in the set being the Gengar V-Max alternate art. For a while, the card sat at around $200 in value, until this scandal came out and the card jumped to $726. Wow, whoa! This next card I actually did not know had become so expensive. This is the Rayquaza V-Max alternate art from Evolving Skies. This card absolutely deserves to be this high up. Not only is this card beautiful, it also for quite a while was very underappreciated, much like other cards on Evolving Skies. With everyone focused on the Umbreon, people largely disregarded the other cards in the set, until the Umbreon became so expensive. Nowadays, fans have begun to appreciate the smaller dogs in the game, such as this Rayquaza card, which would cost you $770 to get in your collection. We are in the top 3 now, and I'm fairly certain you can guess the top 2. However, this next card, I imagine many people have actually forgotten about now. Legendary pairs are rare outside the main legendaries, with only 2 or 3 legendary pairs as opposed to legendary trios in the entire franchise. And perhaps 2 of the most iconic are the Latties. 2 adorable little dragon legendaries that fans have loved deeply for years. And to celebrate this love, Pokemon released a tag team card in Sun and Moon team up of the 2 Latties making a heart with their heads. Yeah, this is adorable. Unfortunately though, the price isn't. To get this in your collection, it would cost you $1,333. That's a very specific number. And finally, we have made it. The 2 Umbreon cards. I have hopes for one of these that when people realize just how high the population is, the price will go down. But let's start with Prismatic Evolutions. Prismatic Evolutions Umbreon EX is already close to its Evolving Skies counterpart, costing $1,595. As said, I believe this card will come back down, just not by much. As long as people are buying the card for the price, the card will stay at that price. It's a gorgeous card, and I do love it. I just feel it's a little bit overpriced at the moment. However, the Umbreon V-Max from Evolving Skies, I would say is a much fairer price. This is back in the day where you could open 40 packs of Evolving Skies and barely even see a V card, leading to its nickname, Evolving Cries. It was a tough set with tough pull rates, considerably worse than Prismatic Evolutions, so pulling this card really was 1 in a million, leading to its price nowadays of $1,746.